Hopefully nobody
This meeting is being
objects.
recorded.
I see David Hillman just joined, and I think he's starting from Three Forks here. And like, Dave, are you starting like in a week?
No, I'm not that crazy.
Oh,
June
not,
4th.
June 4th. Oh, so
Yeah,
you're gonna wait for the last snowstorm.
Yeah, that way I just get snowed on when I start. Right? Yeah, no, June 4th, I've got a whitewater trip down North Carolina to get out of the way first.
Nice. Yeah, how's the dialing things in going?
I'm all set. I got the last of my mappage. I had, as you and I've been trading notes, I figured out how that inReach works. And my favorite saying right now is my son says, if I'm sitting the same place on the map for 4 days in a row and I don't send him a text, he's going to come get my body. So
yeah,
but inReach is good. Trying to think, I picked up the last one more battery pack. Going to trust my solar and finding outlets can do it, as we've talked the last couple of meetings. So no, I'm good. In fact, the only thing is mile marker 0. I know where it is down in the head of the passes. I'm not looking forward to paddling back upstream, but I am going to touch salt water rather than just stop at mile marker 0.
well, if you get a good incoming tide when you're at the Gulf, there's more water coming upstream than going down. So
you assume I can remember how to read the tide maps when, like, I was in California. I doubt it's been a while. So I'll have a tent and a boat if I have to. I'll just find some place to camp for the night. So
right.
No, looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing everybody.
Oh, that's great. Hey, I just want to point out Jim and Phyllis Mead are on here. Hi guys from up in Great Falls.
Hi there.
They've been helping paddlers since probably the 70s, Portage and people around the dam up there in Great Falls. How many people do you think you've helped over the last 5 decades?
Oh, probably 50 or 60.
Man, that's great. I don't know if you know, this is like the biggest year that I've heard are going down. The last record I had, I heard there's 21 people leaving Three Forks. That's a huge year. We'll see.
Yeah, no.
See what happens.
Our phone number's on your site, isn't it?
I think so. I think I have your current, and those guys that were going out this year, Dave, Alan, I think that PDF list that I sent, it's all the people all the way down. I think their phone number and emails on there.
Email.
I'll tell you the number we have here is 406-727-2762.
That is correct, and that number is our house phone. It has a message on it that we listen to very regularly.
And one thing to point out, don't call them after the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Or you could call us at 10.
That's great. Okay, so
I think I'll make sure I get there early in the morning so you have all day to try to transport my buns around whatever dams I have to up there.
Well, there's 5 dams that you have to go around. The power people don't want any paddlers anywhere near their dams. So it's a mandatory portage.
Well, someone said, Dave, you're a whitewater boater. You could handle the whitewater. I said, yeah, 17-foot boat with 100 pounds in it. Are you crazy? So I will happily go around all the dams and any whitewater this trip. That's for other trips.
Yeah, well, we don't put people on at Maroney Dam because that is serious water with ledges, and we never quite know the abilities of the people who are paddling. So we just mark that off our list. It's either Widow Coulee, Carter Ferry, or Fort Benton.
Yeah, I'll take the first thing down below the whitewater. There was something out on Norm's on the page about someone tried to do that in their long boat. They just cracked the crap out of their boat going over the ledges. So it's like, that's not worth it.
No, it's not. We've had several people die.
Well, if you saw some of the whitewater I do, you'd probably think I'm crazy too, but not in a 17-foot boat that's loaded to the hilt.
Well, at our age, we don't do whitewater anymore. We watch other people do it.
I'm getting to that point.
Oh.
Norm, you're on mute.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Trying to answer some calls. Some people are trying to get on. They can't seem to get on. So, hey, let's start. Who's got a question that's going this year? And maybe I'll have, I see Janet Moreland's on here. Hi, Janet. How are you? Amanda's on here. Amanda went all the way to the Gulf last year. She's actually the only person that I know that went to the Gulf of Mexico. If you want to ask Amanda a question.
Norm, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So my name is Bill Burke. I live in California and I'm 80 years old. I solo paddled the Mississippi in 2019 from source to Gulf. And my plan is to do the Missouri this year, probably third week of June. I have a 60-year anniversary in mid-June, so I better be here for that. So I had a few questions. By the way, thank you, Norm, for organizing this.
Oh yeah, it's fun. Glad to help.
Everything you do for all of us. I have quite a few questions. I'll ask a couple and then let other people ask their questions before I come back to mine. My first question is probably been answered before, but to the locals, is it the Missouri River or the Missouri River?
Hey, Janet, you're from Missouri. What do you want to say?
I call it the Missouri River. Well, you could probably, my parents called it Missouri, but I call it Missouri.
You can also call it the Big Muddy.
Yeah, they call the Mississippi that too, so.
Yeah. You can call it the
all right.
Mississippi.
Mississippi, right, the Big Muddy. So my second question is, I'm hearing, of course, that it's low water this year and likely to stay that way. And if that's the case, I'd be interested in tips and views from people on this call as to the pros and cons of low water and how to mitigate the risks from the cons. So what are if I could just get some sense of what to look out for, how to mitigate risk, what to be worried about or to be happy about with low water. When I was on the Mississippi in 2019, I didn't have that issue.
Hey, Amanda, are you there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Welcome. Good to see you.
Better than last time. I'm back on the road again.
Cool. Thanks for joining. Well, since you were on it last year, why don't you comment on like the low water issues that you had?
Yeah, it was pretty low. I think that in general, I would classify the issues as you're working harder to get to camp. That's really the only issue I saw. I personally, and anybody who saw it in higher water can comment to the contrary if they know better, but I thought it made the wing dams more easily identifiable. You can hear them well before you get to them, even if they're somewhat submerged. So I actually liked low water. The reservoirs, it did kind of turn into canals. So Oahe, the first 70 miles was more of a river. But there's mostly the access ramps that you would expect to be there aren't there. You have to walk a half a mile or a quarter mile up the hill to get to them. But that, to me, that was a convenience thing because you can go down river and find another camp too, is how I kind of handled it.
Did you have
Low water also means better camping.
Sometimes it uncovers the mud and rocks.
Yeah, it's a river.
Yeah,
I'll take low water over high water. When you guys said low water year, I'm like, cool.
I think I would agree.
That's good to hear.
how about on the reservoirs? What kind of issues did you have with the low water?
I didn't see any issues.
Did you have any encounters with all the exposed trees or any of that?
I did, but I was in a tank. So my canoe could take just about anything under the water submerged. So yeah, that's a good call out, Norm. Because not all I think the kayaks might have a harder time with stuff like that. The other worry I had that didn't ever happen, but I would have had to jump in is if I got stuck on one of those submerged stumps. So yeah, I think as long as you keep your eyes open though, I mean you kind of keep your head on a swivel the whole time.
That's helpful.
Are the reservoirs are clear enough that you can see those kind of obstacles usually?
Right,
Well,
right when you're up on them.
that
Oh, okay.
that depends too, Alan. I had a situation, envision 3-foot seas. So you're
Oh,
this level and then it's up here. So you got the tops of trees doing this, acres of them.
I've seen that.
You know what I mean? You'll be going along,
right.
sudden an entire tree will come out of the water, branches and all, and then you'll go down. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah. Okay.
so that's the thing you're dealing with there. Janet, did you have issues with the trees on some of the lakes?
I think it was Lake Sharp where we had those stumps, and they're there. They were there when I went by. You just have to stay out in the channel.
Right.
Don't hug the side when there's, I mean, if they won't be out in the middle of a big lake. So
Right.
I'm not saying to go out across the middle of a big lake, but if you see those stumps and there's certain spots where they're there, just stay out in the channel or out in the middle and just stay clear. You don't want to be paddling through them. Now, sometimes you have to, and it's pretty obvious where they are. You know, you just have to use common sense for the most part for the whole trip. Just use common sense.
Could I ask a follow-up question to low water on the lakes?
Go for it, Steve. How are you?
I was wondering, especially when you have to like hoof it to camp, like, are you dealing with like a lot of mud? And I know someone asked it the last time with the Zoom, like, would you recommend like muck boots, or do you think like sandals that like have good straps on them are good enough, or like some old sneakers? Was that ever an issue, or would you recommend bringing boots like that?
Janet?
When you're in the mud, just use bare feet.
Cool.
Amanda?
Shoes are pretty worthless the whole way until it gets cold.
And then if it's cold, you should probably have some of those. I like the NRS neoprene boots. They're golden, but if it's hot, you don't want to wear them. You don't want to wear tennis shoes. I don't think. I don't remember ever wearing tennis shoes unless I was hiking.
Yeah.
I wore some of the strap sandals when it gets rocky, because you do go back and forth quite a bit between mud, sand, and gravel. So I liked having them.
Yeah.
So that I could put them on for the sharp rocks, but
I think I had flip-flops tied onto my deck just to be able to throw them on. But if it's muddy, just take your shoes off.
Jim
and
Emmanuel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, what kind of footwear did you have?
I had sandals and also Crocs, but the Crocs are pretty worthless getting out of the boat. But
Yeah.
they're good in the boat and around camp. But
Yeah.
and I didn't have low water. I didn't see any mud. I had the reservoirs were full pool, and my biggest problem was finding a camp spot.
Right.
Low water, you can camp anywhere you want. That's going to be great.
Yeah, there's no shortage of camps for sure. Steve, in 2004, I had a pair of like welly boots, they go to knee high. I wanted dry feet. Just dragging my boat to the edge to camp. But the further I got up, the season got warmer, it was more summer, and I just switched to sandals or barefoot or whatever. But I liked having the dry feet. I didn't want to have my feet, especially I started in March. So March, April, May, it was pretty wet. Nothing was drying out. And I didn't want to like get trench foot or anything, getting infections in my feet being wet for 3 months straight. So I tried to keep my feet dry. But now that you're going more into summer, it's probably not going to be that much of an option.
Well, and Kokatap makes these things called, I call them mud socks. They're just, in fact, I've got a pair for the trip because you can wear them in your sandals, over your sandals. They go up to your knees. So if you want to shed some of that mud, they weigh nothing. They wash off easy. I've used them before in Iowa mud bugs. So, but Kokatap makes them, they call high socks or mud socks. They work pretty well when it gets really soupy. Yeah, I'm with you, Norm. I just don't want wet feet every day. I mean, if I can wash them off, but if I've got to be dealing with the mud, I can strip these things off pretty fast.
Right.
How bad are the ticks and bugs going to be this year? Anybody got a clue?
Tick stories, Amanda. No?
I only saw one the whole time.
Oh God, I hope so.
It was outside Fort Benton too. I didn't expect to see one in Montana. But I started really late. I didn't start until July 11th. So I think if you started earlier, if you get down around Missouri, they're horrible this year. I don't know if Janet can speak to that too, but they are down in the southern part of the state. They are bad.
We have ticks here with Rocky Mountain fever.
Oh yeah.
That's Montana, mid Great Falls.
We've had we had a local guy had a serious tick bite issue. He almost died. He was in the hospital for days. So you just have to be careful. And if you're hanging out where ticks hang out, which is in tall grass, I think.
Yeah, tall grass, definitely.
Tall
Yeah,
grass
I made the mistake of camping on what's the reservoir above Pickstown? What's that called?
Sharp is where
Yeah.
Lower Brule is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Big-
so I remember on Sharp and in tall grass, I put my tent in like waist high grass. Big mistake. I know better living in Montana, and I pulled 70, maybe 80 ticks off my tent and body that day.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was not good.
Thanks,
It was
Norm.
the
You're making me feel good.
It was the worst I've
Oh,
encountered
that sounds
of my
horrible.
life. So
I would have quit.
again, like Janet said, don't do the tall grass because that's what they go to tall grass and they wait for an animal to walk through that so they can jump on.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out on the sand, they can't have no way of jumping onto your body. So stay out in the grass, out in the mud and the dirt. Away from
I don't remember. I don't
I got a
remember.
bug
having
suit.
any
I just
issues
hope I don't
with-
have to wear it.
Yeah.
I didn't have any issues with ticks on my trip.
There's not a lot of campsites that I remember. I think I only had one where I got stuck in the grass because I got capsized by waves. So I didn't have a choice in Alta. But outside of that, you really have other options. So like they
Like-
said, I would just steer clear of any grass.
I do have a little jar, and every tick I pull off me is going into the jar. And that way, if I end up in the hospital, they can go look at it. That's pretty standard here in Iowa. It's Lyme disease all over creation. So we tend to collect them and bring them back with you just in case so they can be tested. But I figure Rocky Mountain fever in Montana, Lyme in Iowa, Texas star fever in Arkansas, we'll just collect them all as we go down the river.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think I've ever heard of a story though of anyone like, getting really sick from, but it can happen. Just be smart.
Yeah, I haven't either until this year. And he had like purple blotches all up and down his legs. I mean, I was in shock when I saw his posts on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
And then we were talking just the other night, somebody else brought up a story and they had gotten sick. And I'm like, whoa, I need to be more concerned about these ticks, I think, because
Janet,
one
are
guy-
these people in Missouri too?
I can't remember exactly who it was. It might have been when we were in New Haven, so it may have been Missouri.
I'm curious because I know two people within the last 2 years that have had really obscure the bacterial kind where they had to do the antibiotics and find out which kind it was. And one kid was 7, he almost died. The
Yeah,
family
I think
friend
this
down
was a
here.
bacterial thing that this guy had.
Hmm.
They're
Oh,
definitely in Missouri. I mean, I was talking to a guy the other day. I mean, I'm in Kansas City, and he was in the city and got a bullseye rash, which I think is the Lyme
It's
disease.
limes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I was shocked to hear that because he wasn't out like camping.
That was this year, Steve?
Yeah. That was like in the last few months,
That's they.
or it was maybe in the fall, he told me. Yeah.
Just take a little glass jar, put the ticks in it. The doctors can figure it out.
yeah, but
Um,
stay away from him. So you
Well,
don't
yeah,
have to put it in the
as
jar.
much as you can, Janet.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah, it's
water.
just, yeah.
Don't do any hiking on your trip. Just
The
stay-
mosquitoes are the thing that are a pain in the butt. Man,
You-
there's some places, not every day, but there are some places where it was clouds of mosquitoes. And that's why I use 98% DEET on any river trip I go on. I don't care.
you don't
Janet,
see-
when did you start when you did yours? I think you started earlier than I did.
I started at Brower Spring in, what was it, April
23rd.
19th, wasn't it?
23rd, I think.
24th or something.
24th. Yeah, I was with you, I think.
I kind of remember something about that.
That's a whole nother.
Old night.
That's a whole.
I don't know
nother-
how you did that. That's a crazy story about Brower Spring. I'm looking forward to talking to you in person, but I started
Yeah.
later and I didn't have, again, I could count on one hand the mosquitoes I saw, but they had that, Norm, you can probably fill in the information on this, the historic hatch of the deer flies for me.
Oh, I don't know about that. I never.
They had like 100-year hatch of the little deer flies that bite. So that's what I got caught in.
Where were you at when that happened?
Heck.
You were, wow.
Mhm.
Those I think are worse than mosquitoes and horseflies.
Much worse. I'm
If
bringing
there
my
was-
bug suit. You guys convinced me.
If there was a road, I would have quit, but nobody was coming.
When you're
Oh
in
my
a
God.
cloud of mosquitoes, all you want is for those mosquitoes to not land on your body. So,
Mhm.
you know, I definitely use high powered DEET. Also, I brought a fly swatter on my boat for those.
Fly swatter is a great psychological thing because you can count the tally at the end of the night in the bottom
Yes.
of your boat. Say, I killed.
And you get vicious too.
True
Ah!
thing. True thing. True story.
That is
I
great.
used my camp towel, so it actually got more than a fly swatter.
Yeah, that's handy too.
Use it like a whip.
You can knock
Probably
out
almost-
hundreds of them in one swipe.
Probably almost tipped over a couple times doing that, going crazy. But
I wonder how they're gonna be though this year, because we're at like, I've talked to people, they think we're at the same level of dryness as we were in '88, and that's when we had the huge fires out here, Yellowstone fires, and I'm wondering if being so dry, it might be a non-bug year. I don't remember any bugs in 2004 when I did the river, and that was a low year. I don't recall ever even putting mosquito repellent on or anything. Yeah, it's just weird.
the good thing is if you have a support system, you can always have more mailed to you. And by the time you get through Fort Peck,
Yep.
you can stop and pick stuff up. So if it becomes a problem,
Yeah.
that was nice.
That's what's good about a lot of this small gear, like your insect repellent or bug shirt. It doesn't take up a lot of space. So Dave, bring it all. You know,
Well-
it's gonna fit in a dry bag like that. You know what I mean?
I set a limit 100 pounds of 100 pounds of food, or 100 pounds, 50 pounds of food and 50 pounds of gear. And my gear is all well within that 50-pound limit, so I can
Wow.
pack a little more water. I'll push it up because I don't want the boat. Don't need the boat over 100 pounds of stuff if I can help it.
Right. I forget what boat you're paddling.
17-foot current design fiberglass kayak.
Which which brand or model?
I
The
have to go look. I know it's current design.
current, okay, okay.
It's fast.
Cool.
It cruises. Well, it does if I don't have any weight in it, but
Yeah.
it'll be a little slower than normal.
Um,
But yeah, I'm gonna go bare minimum on most of the trips. So looking forward to hitting Fort Benton or Tobacco Gardens or places like, wow, there's real food here. Let's have some.
right, right. Steve, when was your due date? Or when was your departure date?
I'm planning for June 2nd.
Okay.
We're gonna be within a day each other.
I know. I'll probably see you out there. I'll be moving slow. I have the
'Cause-
feeling.
Because I think the third, it's whatever the Saturday is. I think that's either the third or the fourth. But yeah, we'll be within a day of each other.
Mhm.
Steve, what are you paddling?
I'm paddling Winona Prism. It's a
Yep, I
Kevlar
know.
layout.
Yeah, I know the boat. Yep, good boat.
Yeah, I've only tested. I bought it off a guy on Craigslist just like a month ago, so I'm looking forward to getting to know it better.
Yeah, hitting trees with that, unless you really broach straight on, you can take a lot of abuse. So, and as someone said, what's the difference between a canoe and a kayak? And I said, in a canoe, you can eat. In a kayak, you're going to starve. So,
Yeah, I want to be able to carry a lot. I have a
yes.
question actually related to that boat or any boat really that's Kevlar, which is new to me. I'm used to like plastic boats that can just take a hit and not really fear for anything. But I mean, would you recommend? I'm looking at patch kits in case like something happens, but I don't really want to bring a bunch with me. If something bad happens, could I get away with just like Gorilla Tape or something? And
Yeah, you can't. I paddle a lot of
That's too
Kevlar,
much.
and you just can't take something. You just can't drop it on a pointed rock. There's duct tape, Gorilla Tape. There's also something called hippo patches,
okay,
and we use it in whitewater. They're waterproof, but it's called hippo patch. If you put that into Google, I'm going to carry 2 or 3 5x5 pieces with me, just so if I have to slap a quick patch on a boat until I can get someplace to do something regular. But hippo patch will get you across just about anything.
thank you.
And Norm, I have another question.
Go for it.
Are you going to be putting together a list of paddlers so that those of us who want to can keep in touch with each other as to what's going on the river?
You know, I thought I'd sent that out. Maybe you didn't get it. I know
I got it and I submitted my name, but I wondered if you're going to compile that and give it to all of us.
I may have. Did anybody get a list from me? No.
I never did.
I didn't.
I'd like to be on that
I
list.
did.
Me bad.
Yeah, Norm, you sent out the river contacts. You just didn't. I haven't seen
maybe I didn't.
the season
Well,
list yet.
well, you know, 4 of you right now, you could like friend each other on Facebook too. Exchange phone numbers. But yeah, that's definitely a cool way to do it. I mean, even psychologically, you know, if you're,
Right.
you know, a day or a week ahead of somebody and said, hey, did you pull into so-and-so ramp? Is there water there? And they go, oh God, stay away from there. It's whatever. You know, you guys that are on the river have the most up-to-date information than any of us, than anybody, you know.
So on my InReach, Norm, you've already checked about. I'm going to go post that on the Missouri. You can post it on a page. You can't post it for some reason on your own feed. So I'm going to post it out on the Missouri page and our Whitewater page, and then people can track us as we go. So if you're using a GPS and you have that ability, post it there, and then we can follow each other by just watching the river links.
Would it be possible, Norm, for us to send you our contact information, which I've already done, and then have you send it to us? I'm not too adept at Facebook.
Yeah, send it to me. Do you have my email?
I got your email and I responded, but I didn't get a list, so I didn't know if you were putting one together.
Well, it sounds like I forgot or something, but yes, remind me, I'll try to get one out this weekend.
Okay. And I had another question, Norm. When I was on the Mississippi, I pretty much relied on, I had an Apple MacBook Air, an iPhone, the navigation maps of the Army Corps, and Google Maps. And that's pretty much what I relied on for navigation. I didn't download any maps, on my GPS. So my question is, what's the cell phone coverage like on the Missouri? I understand it's pretty sketchy and until you get to Fort Peck, but I just want to know how much, because I really thought that was great on the Mississippi. I always knew where I was on the river and what the towns had and what the stores were. I have Verizon. Does anybody have any thoughts on where that's good and not good?
Good question. The last person that was on the river was Amanda. What kind of
Yeah.
what cell phone coverage did you have? What's your provider?
I have Verizon.
Did you have problems in certain areas or strategy?
Yeah, the section that I expected was obviously through northern Montana there, that 3-week, for me, it was a 3-week period to Fort Peck. So that was fine. But then every time I thought I was getting close to having a signal the rest of the way, it's still not, I wouldn't call it reliable. So I think it depends on where you camped. The trend I saw is I'd have a great signal on the river and should have made phone calls on the river because the second I pulled up into camp, all my bars would go away.
Huh.
Which is, I don't know why. I don't understand it enough to know why that is, but I think you just have to kind of keep an eye on it and plan around it is what I did. You definitely can't count on it the whole way. And there's also, for anybody going to the Gulf all the way, there's also a point, what was it, south of Caruthersville. There's a section there on the Mississippi where there's nothing until you get into really Greenville or Vicksburg.
Right.
So you're really in a remote area there too.
So did you
What
have?
do you have for
coverage on
GPS?
Pardon?
What do you
I
have for
carried
GPS?
I carried a handheld too, so
Right,
I always had
Amanda.
maps, satellite.
The other guy, the gentleman that asked the question.
Oh, sorry.
No, I knew yours because I'd asked you. What are you using for GPS?
Well, I have a Garmin GPS and that's it.
Download the maps. InReach is all the maps and they'll lock in the whole time.
InReach, I have an InReach and I also have a Garmin GPS. Where do you download those maps on the Garmin or on the InReach?
So InReach is Garmin. So that's
Okay.
the only thing. So if you go out to explore.garmin.com, that's where you can pull the maps down and you sync them to your phone.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was piling up a whole bunch of paper maps and then looking at what everyone's done. It's like, A, the river goes downstream. So that's pretty easy to follow. And B, the InReach maps when cell phone isn't around look pretty good. So the worst thing is I'm lost for a week. What the heck?
There's only a couple places that even get remotely confusing, and that's what I was worried about is that if I can screw it up, I will.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm worried about too. But it worked really well for me on the Mississippi with just my Verizon and my Google Maps. I didn't really need anything else. But did you say you got coverage from Verizon most of the way on the Missouri or okay, that's good to hear. Good.
The majority of the way, and I would say even my Garmin, I could tell where I was supposed to be. So the Van Hook arm was one of them where it gets really wide. And you kind of, if you go in there and I happened to have a storm, and so I was just trying to get out of that and didn't really follow my previous plan to stay on the South Shore. So that was one where, and then Oahe, the beginning of Oahe, I got really confused because the water was so low. So this doesn't look anything like it says it's supposed to look. And so that really helped me stay in the channel, but you always have that with your handheld. So I kept that pretty close at the upper Missouri the whole way.
Was your handheld a GPS then?
Yeah.
Was it a
Yep,
GPS
it was
or just a GPS?
Nope, it was just a regular handheld. I cannot remember what model off the top of my head, and I don't have it with me in the car here.
Okay.
It's old.
That's the InReach right there.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it's a
have
little,
that. I
it's
just
definitely
didn't know.
not, definitely not that fancy, but it worked.
Okay.
The other thing, you're used to using Google Maps, you can download onto your phone Google Map sections.
Okay.
And so even if you don't have service, you'll have that map, which it will also, if your phone has GPS on it, it'll show you where you are on the Google Map.
So you download the Google Map onto your phone.
Onto your phone.
Now you could
So
do-
if you don't have service, you can still
Right.
use the map. But it's and what I've done in traveling is when I didn't want to use data and I was traveling over in Europe, I would download several maps, and because you can't get super detailed if you're just looking for, where am I on the river and what towns am I near,
Right.
it'll have that.
Okay.
So
Good.
just look up how to download Google Map to my phone.
Okay, good idea. Thank you.
Mm.
And then one more question. Are there any really good apps that you should download for the Missouri River? And I checked it today and it didn't look like there was anything.
Oh, boy, you're asking the wrong guy.
Ha-
Man,
have-
did you have any apps?
Any app? Any app?
Yeah, I was just wondering. If,
Windy. Have
Sorry.
you heard of Windy?
no.
The app Windy?
Wendy's
It's a great app that shows you wind and predicted wind, but it shows you directions, and it uses your phone's GPS to tell you where you're at, and you can scroll ahead to see what they're predicting for winds and directions.
Oh, that's good to know.
WINDY.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. It is
Mhm.
looking. Yeah, it's so hard to hear all these responses. I did the trip in 2004. It's like, oh my God, there was none of this technology.
I tore pages out of a
Paper-
road atlas.
paper
And I just went
maps.
from state to state.
Pay phones. Oh.
Janet, I've got the Arkansas and Louisiana gazetteers that I pulled
Oh,
the
those
river sections out of those just as a backup. They'll work very well.
Yeah, you even get the Montana Gazetter, because then it shows the accents points. You have to hitchhike to a little town off the river, it shows it on the map. And
Well,
My
Norm,
my issue was running out of power. My cell phone, it only lasts for a day and then you got to charge it up. So
Yeah.
if you've got a great charging system, go for the apps and just be on your phone all the time. But that didn't work for me.
Yeah,
I ran out of juice all the time.
yeah, I've got solar so I can juice it. But part of the trip, my
Had
philosophy is
solar.
I'm trying to disconnect from my electronics. I live off them all the time. So the only thing that I'm going to make sure runs is my inReach, because that's my link to help. After that, the river goes one direction. If it takes an extra day or two, I think that'll be an adventure, be fun to be lost once in a while.
You want to leave a little bit of element of adventure,
Yeah.
I think. If everything is just all laid out for you, then it's like,
yeah,
Totally
it's gonna
agree.
get lost, like you said.
You're not getting out of it what you can if you do that.
true.
But I will say, don't plan on solar the whole time, because
No.
you will have sections of stormy days that you can't charge it, and solar doesn't seem to work with a lot of devices I found. So
I've tested my system, but on the other hand, if it's cloudy, I might have to go hiking that day. It would be horrible to have to hike, 2 extra days in Missouri break seeing things. So yeah, I figure if my power is down, I'm just going to enjoy the day. Looked at a lot of what people have done, Amanda, what you did. It's like I think the number one thing is don't set a schedule and just kind of take it day by day and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's what I did on the Mississippi.
Norm knows how impatient I am now.
I do. What
You
do
do.
you mean?
I feel like every response I gave you, he was so encouraging the whole time. And I could not, I needed to make progress. I was that person that I was behind from day one and I needed to make progress, and I still enjoyed every minute of it. I really did, but I was not the patient one.
It's so funny. I never felt like you were impatient, or like
You didn't?
I never felt like you were behind anybody else. I knew you were gonna make it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
glad
like,
somebody knew.
no, I just
Amanda,
used
my
to
only
air-
worry on schedule is you get down to the Gulf and you run into a hurricane or tropical storm. That is literally the only thing I'd like to
That's
avoid.
the only that's the only reason I left so late. And if I had really, I lived in Montana for 5 years, and if I had done my due diligence on runoff, I would have known how dry that year was. But we had such big runoff years the years I lived there, that I made a bad assumption. And so that's why I left in July, thinking I wanted to sandwich myself between runoff and hurricane season. And turns out I missed both by a mile.
yeah, they didn't. I remember. Well, geez, John McFarland. What year was that? 2005. They didn't. Nobody got past Memphis that year. Hurricane Katrina, I think, was coming all the way up into Memphis. They were like, or Vicksburg. You know, that was like the cutoff point for anybody going anywhere to. And I forget when that made landfall. When was that? October?
That was 2004, I think, wasn't it?
I think it was 5.
The 5?
It could some hurricane. Maybe it wasn't Katrina, but the whatever, the next one.
Either
Is
way,
everybody-
the wind is bad enough on a normal day.
Yeah.
Is everybody going to the Gulf or St. Louis?
I'm going to the
Dave's
Gulf.
going to the golf.
I'm going St. Louis.
St. Louis?
I
I
think
figure if I get to St. Louis, I might as well go the rest of the way.
that's how I feel. I think I'm going to the Gulf.
There's like Janet. There's like I counted like maybe 19 to 21 people going all the way this year, or all, you know, at least to St. Louis. There's one guy, Thorin Leck. He's not on here. He's a Canadian kid. He said he might try to get on tonight. He's actually starting where Neil Moore did next week at the Pacific and paddling up to Columbia and
Wow.
Snake, and then Portage and over to the Missouri later on in the summer. But yeah,
Wow.
it's gonna be an interesting year.
That's impressive. Is that all, Norm? You've had 20 people that you know
I
about?
think I counted, yeah, but
Raising hands and money?
Alan and his wife,
We're postponing.
yeah, that's what I meant, postponing because of law, brings it down to 19 or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's still a lot.
But I do have a question for those of you that have done Missouri, I mean Mississippi, below St. Louis. How much debris, is it normal to have a lot of debris on the Mississippi?
It was for
Well,
me.
I like to have a little debris because that tells you where the channel is.
True.
Oh,
I
okay.
have my little pet driftwood, that I
Yeah.
follow the river.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I didn't have a problem with debris at all. I just kept an eye out for it and tried to stay away from it.
Just depends on the rains. If you get a lot of rain, you might get some debris. That's how it is on the Missouri.
Did you guys run into any issues with it though? I feel like you just paddle around it. You have plenty of warning, and I didn't ever feel like I was in danger, or it didn't sneak up on me at all.
Yeah, it's not an issue.
It's just kind of floating out there with you.
Yeah.
Was it mostly natural debris, especially on the Mississippi? I was wondering if there's a lot of junk.
No.
You'll see a lot of soccer balls and basketballs and tennis balls growing stuff. And I saw 3 bookshelves. I don't know, Janet.
If you're lucky,
Tires, refrigerators.
you'll find a bowling ball, but they're usually on shore. It's
Big
always
flood.
kind of like,
Bowling
oh my
ball?
God, a bowling ball?
How did
But
that even
they're out
make it
there.
down there?
The Missouri River, after a big rain upriver, you're going to get a lot of debris. Like
Yeah.
today, there was a lot of debris coming down. But the
Wow.
Mississippi, I don't really I don't really remember a lot of debris on the Mississippi. I just don't think there's enough wooded tributaries that will wash out. I mean, anytime it rains upriver, you gotta be careful. I mean, you gotta expect. And can I just say, always tie up your boat. If you're on the Mississippi River, don't ever go to bed without, or leave your boat without tying it up, because the river can rise fast. And there are stories of stranded people on islands and remote shoreways, and you can't get off. So
I'll take
always
that
tie
a
up
step
your boat.
further because I did lose my boat stupidly. I was so mad at myself. Even if you tie it up, take a double check. Tie
Oh.
it twice. Tie it heavier, tie it harder.
Get up in the middle of the night. If there's a
You'll
lot of
hear it.
that. Check your boat. Don't lose your boat.
One thing you can do is put a little reflective tape on the side of your boat. You wake up in the middle of the night and think, wow, I wonder if the boat's there. You shine your flashlight out and you can see it.
Well, that's smart.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because some of those storms, you're waiting out inside your tent and it's pitch black with 50-mile-an-hour winds and you can't see the boat. But if you shine your light, the tape will show up. That's
A great idea.
I also tied my boat to my tent almost every camp with a short leash because I would hate losing the boat. So if the water would come up, it started tugging on my tent before it floated away. Unless a tornado comes and blows your canoe away, then you're probably going with it. So it's not all perfect.
So Jim, you went to the Gulf, and that was, what year was that?
2018.
2018. Okay.
I want to thank Janet. She's the one that talked to me. I was just going to go to St. Louis, and I met Janet. She talked me into going to the Gulf. So that was the best decision I ever made.
Was our little powwow at Cooper's with
Right.
with Martin.
She doesn't know this, but her blog is what talked me into thinking I could even do it.
Oh, right. I haven't kept it up. I feel really bad. I'm very.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Oh, well, that's wonderful to hear. Great. Excellent. It's a great adventure.
You know,
Great
something I
It
appreciated,
is.
something I appreciated that Norm volunteered for was with my inReach and sending out messages to my family, like when I'm starting the day and ending it, and issues. And Norm, maybe I shouldn't say this, Norm, but I asked Norm if I could include him on my, the broadcast for the free messages that inReach lets you do. And it really meant a lot to me that you said, oh, of course, yes, I want to know that.
Thanks.
My family and friends, great, but somebody who knows the river, knows the, what's going on there. It was great to know that you were interested. You'd be willing to
Oh, I love it.
take my emergency calls or whatever. Okay.
Oh, I love getting to. It's funny. It's actually, from my standpoint, it is just comical. Sometimes I'll get like 3 or 4 texts, 5 texts from different paddlers on different sections of the river within 10 minutes. Somebody in Pure and somebody in Bismarck, and like just, and I don't know, it's just kind of neat to follow everybody along and whatever.
Well, I'm glad you'd like to.
Throw out any tidbits of information that I know or whatever. It's a good.
So I'll share a story about Norm. There's a lot of them, but don't let him get you up first thing in the morning and tell you to get on that river. That's what he used to do to me. I get so mad. I'm like, hey, it's my trip. If I don't want to get on at sunrise, just leave me alone, because I like to get up and drink coffee and then go for a little walk and listen to the birds. And he was always like, get on the river. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna, just because you told me to.
Oh, yeah.
Enjoy your trip. Don't think you have to hurry and paddle.
No schedule.
No schedule.
Yeah, but Alan, getting back to what you were saying though, like I giving my phone number to your family members if they want to call or text me, I've eased a lot of pieces of mine. I've had wives call me up and say they haven't heard from so and their husband in 3 days and like, oh, he's okay. The weather's bad up there or whatever. Yeah.
Well, remember the issue. I think it was this last summer with the two guys who capsized in Fort Peck and you sent out the
Yeah.
cavalry
Yeah.
and
I didn't send it. That was the Spot Beacon sent that out. Thank God they had that.
Yeah.
That was in Ken. They flipped over near upstream of Hell Creek.
Mhm.
It was up by Snow Creek, wasn't it?
Or yeah, Hell. What's the marina? Hell Marina.
It was Hell Creek.
Hell Creek.
There's
Upstream of Hell.
Those are the guys that went out and saved them.
Yeah, the Hell
Graveyard
Creek
Point.
Marina people did. But Ed's wife, the one guy that capsized, texted me immediately when she got the message from InReach saying something's wrong. And I'm like, okay. So I think I immediately got on the phone with Hell Creek Marina or somebody to figure out what was going on. And they had already had 2 search parties, one coming up from UL Bend area, and then the Hell Creek Marina there. Jim, your friends there, I forget their name. But they're lucky. I mean, Ken was unconscious when they pulled him out of the water,
Wow.
and he didn't regain conscious until they put him in the ambulance in the back. I don't think he would have lasted another 5 minutes in the water. And Ed, and the thing was, no
Did he end up
motorboats
making it
were
in the
going
water?
out there that year or that day because it was just it was like 6, 7, 8 foot seas out there. Nobody was fishing. And those guys from the marina went way beyond what they're able to do in those boats and pulled those guys out. Yeah, it's lucky.
Did they have wetsuits or anything?
Did they have what? Say it again.
Wetsuits on?
No, don't believe they did.
Okay.
No.
I mean, it was triple digits this summer. That was only a couple weeks before I went through there, and I heard the fishermen there were saying that he didn't make it, so he made it.
Yeah, unless it's a different story that the fishermen you're talking about, or yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine there'd be
They
that
made it. I've
many
talked-
of those.
Yeah, they made it.
That's great to hear, because the story that I heard is that they weren't so lucky, so
No, they made
they
it
gotta.
out of the hospital. They took him
Yeah.
to the hospital with hypothermia, and then it was a trip over for him. But Ed wants to continue next summer. The last I
Good.
talked to him, he wants to finish where he left off and go all the way to St. Louis. So
If you don't see fishing boats on Fort Peck Lake, don't paddle. If there's no fishing boats buzzing around, get off the lake. That means it's not safe. That was my go-to. There's no, where are all the fishing boats? And then it would be too windy.
that's a good tip, actually.
Also, don't let anybody tow you over 10 miles an hour.
No. No one's hooking into my, the boat's already stressed enough. Hook a tow line and they'll rip my bow off. I can paddle.
That was my
Good
nice
Lord.
southern charm coming through. I couldn't say anything bad. We kind of watched it happen in slow motion, but
Yeah.
it still made it. Like I said, it was a tank.
What happened?
I had a nice gentleman and his wife were out fishing, and they kind of stalked me on the shore. I was walking Hank, and they kind of followed me, and I was like, I think they want to talk to me. So I kind of ended up going to shore, and they yelled out, they're like, is there anything you need? And I was like, no. At that point, I had more food than I knew what to do with. That was soon to change, but I said, no, I think I'm good. And I kind of joked and said, unless you want to tow me to the marina. I had about 19 miles left. And I was like, who's going to take me up on that? I'm totally joking. and they were insistent. They were like super nice, insistent, and I couldn't say no. And I was done with Fort Peck. And anybody who's done it knows where I was mentally. I was the flies and the mud, and I was done. So it wasn't hard to convince. So we tied it on, and we made a couple mistakes. The waves were probably 2 feet at that point. I tied the line too long. I would have shortened it up a little bit, even though he had 2 big outboards. And then we got to talking. We're all talking. They're feeding Hank cookies. And I'm watching the speedometer as I see the canoe start to go like this. And I'm like, how do you tell somebody who was so kind to offer you a tow, slow the heck down? You can't tow a canoe that fast. So he goes up to 9 miles an hour. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I think this just can't take this much. And I kind of made a couple comments, and pretty soon the wind caught the canoe and it flipped up in the air, slammed down in the water, capsized. It was actually broken in half.
Oh.
So she screamed, stop. He stopped, but it was full of water. The fiberglass did what it was supposed to do. It buckled, but the center support beam broke in half. It snapped. And it did that because the vertical support beam, for anybody who knows canoes, had come detached. So the vibrations had detached that, which let the support beam break in the middle. So I jumped out, went out to the canoe. They kept hanging there. Everything important was in their boat. I had pulled out everything electronic. I carry a weapon. My weapon was with me. Everything that I needed, my phone, was all in their boat. So the rest of it, they felt horrible. And I said, it's just things, you guys. These are all replaceable. There's nothing. I know the food's still there. I know my tent's still there. All that dries. We're good. So I got out, and it took about 20 minutes to bail the whole thing out. I had a bilge pump and 2 buckets. So I was kind of doing all 3 at once, and then popped the fiberglass right out, made sure it was still intact, and it was. And so then I rode back there supporting it the rest of the way, and it took about 2 more hours to get back to the marina, but they were kind enough to take it back to their house, and we braced it with a 2x4, and it made it all the way to St. Louis.
I had no idea that happened.
I didn't.
Steve,
I thought I posted that, but I probably cleaned up the story a little bit, Norm,
Oh my God.
to shorten it.
Steve, Kevlar won't take that, so don't let anybody tow your Kevlar boat. It's not
Yeah.
going to be the same story. You'll rip it in half. It will
Fiberglass
shatter.
canoe.
Yeah, fiberglass is a little bit better.
Oh, my-
Kevlar, wonderful stuff until you snap it.
oh, it's horrible.
It was a good lesson, though. I mean, you don't know your limits until you push your limits. That's my history, and I don't think you push them stupidly by any means. But it is. I appreciate the experience, that it ended well, and that I learned a lot from it.
I was traveling with a couple of young kids. Actually, they met up while I was waiting out the wind on I can't remember what lake it was, but they stopped for about an hour and chatted with me. And here, I'm waiting patiently for the wind to die so I can get back on the water. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, we're going to head out. And I'm like, wait, it's too windy. You can't do that. They did it. They just got in their kayaks and started heading out right through the swell. And I stood there with my jaw dropped, watching them. And I watched them till I couldn't see them anymore. And I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I packed up. I was a turning point in my trip, watching them go through the waves. So I packed up my stuff and I got out there and I just started barreling through the swell. It was just enough where I didn't feel like, well, I might have felt like my life was at risk, but so I don't know. There are points where you kind of take it to another level, part of the adventure, but if it weren't for them, I would have never gone for it. So keep your eyes open for those opportunities.
Yeah.
And also my boat broke twice, both from being transported by an automobile in a trailer. So be careful
Oh,
when
you're
you,
kidding.
yeah. So I still have, I have some pretty ugly little patches on my boats, but on my boat. But anyway, so be careful when you strap your boat down on a trailer in the back of a truck or on somebody's racks or anything like that. So
Loading it up is when I had the gouges. People just they don't think the same way about our boats that we do.
they don't understand. Yeah. And they
Yeah,
cinch it down and then you hit a bump in the road and it goes,
yeah.
crack, you know.
Yeah, don't let them use those ratchet straps on your boat. Those things will shatter a wine bottle. They're so
Yeah.
It will. I mean, there's no, you can't tell when it's tight. It just keeps going till whatever.
Yeah, and it slowly just
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
compressed
yeah.
until like my bulkheads just
Yeah.
Mm.
popped. It's never the same, but you know, I used it on another trip, so it was all right, I guess. Also on the Beaverhead, my second day in the water, I got 2 holes in my boat from a snag. They were just above water line. So I just took out duct tape. I think it was Steve was asking about that. I took out duct tape and spent another 11 days before I met up with Norm again at Three Forks, and then I patched it up. But duct tape is definitely a must.
Don't
Always.
go anywhere without it.
Don't go anywhere without duct tape. Yeah, for sure. But also I had take a patch kit. Once you learn how to do it, take a patch kit with you. You can do it on the beach. You have to.
Norm, I had a question about portaging.
Yeah.
2 questions really. The first one is, should you manually portage around the dams or pull out in a marina or a access ramp and ask someone to help you? I've read about different views on that. And then secondly, are there places to portage other than the dams, such as rapids or other areas that are dangerous? One of my questions was the rapids that are below Grand Falls, and that's been answered already, so I know what to do there. But are there other places like Pine Rapids or Pine Island Rapids where you should avoid those at all cost? So it's really 2 questions.
So the longest portage is Great Falls, obviously 18 miles. And Jim and Phyllis and a couple other people up there are able to help people put you in at Carter's Ferry below. Typically, the portaging I did in 2004, I didn't plan ahead. I just showed up at a dam and there was somebody there. I either did it manually, which I did some of them, and the others I got a ride, and that's a whole nother incident. I had a small portage cart and I sort of knew ahead of time which ones I would portage because I knew how far the takeout was to the thing. If it was like a couple miles, that's okay. But Great Falls, I obviously didn't. I had a car portage. But I had a sort of a bad incident that reminded me of the previous story, portaging Oahe Dam. So I'm at the bottom going upstream. And if you get out on river, well, it'd be river left, the east side, there's a steep road going up to the top of Oahe Dam. It's like the 45-degree angle switchback across the dam. And I had 200 pounds of gear in my boat, and I'm going up there, and I'm almost at the top, and this guy in a van stopped, and he said, "You want to ride, a lift?" I'm like, "Oh, what the hell?" And he had a, those cooler racks that people put on the outside of their vans. They're like a platform, a welded platform on the outside of a van or trailer. It's just this round thing that they put gear. I sat on that and held my boat while it was on the portage cart. So I'm acting as the hitch
Oh my God.
between my boat and his car. And he's driving to the upstream side of Oahe Dams. And I'm doing the route upstream, not to confuse you. So I'm going upstream. So he's taking me above the dam. And I didn't know how far it was, but at some point I realized he's doing about 50 miles an hour. I'm holding on to my boat, and I'm picturing the axle of the Portage cart turning red as coal, and wheels flying off, and boat, and all the worst case scenario. And I'm hitting the side of the back door of the van and screaming at him, slow down, but he can't hear me. Anyway, the cart survived. I don't know how. And he pulled into the ramp there, and there was like 5-foot white caps out there. There was a big storm rolling in. There was no way I was going anywhere. And he's like, God, I wouldn't, man, that looks dangerous out there. I wouldn't go out there. And the first thing I thought of was the most dangerous thing I did on my trip was the last 2 miles with you riding on the back of us. I just couldn't believe. So watch out when you portage, like Janet was saying about getting your boat broken. People don't know our boats, what they can handle and how to handle the gear. And these things aren't meant to be just thrown on a vehicle and driven 80 miles an hour down a dirt road or whatever. You got to tie them down and secure them. I'm not sure I'm answering the portage question.
I'm wondering, Amanda, what you did. Did you manually portage around the dams, or did you pull out ahead of the dam and look for some help?
Yeah, I was gonna jump in there and give you a heads up on Hauser is the main one that you won't be able to drive right to. I manually did a number of them. I would say I did half and half. I had my family, my mom and dad stayed in town through Great Falls and actually floated part of that with me. So my dad and I walked Toston as your first one. You get to Hauser and it is the steepest, narrowest thing. You cannot drive down to the next access point unless you drive down further. If you get a ride, you can drive down to I forget what state park it is. One of these guys can maybe remember, but you can drive down further, but I wanted to do the portage. So we walked down it and it's just a really steep portage and it's ended with boulder steps. So, I mean, I don't know if it matters what kind of craft you have. You're probably going to need some help or unload your gear and do it one by one. So that was the most technical one I saw. The rest of them, once you get below Peck, it's just distance. There are steep boat ramps at every one. The longest portage was 3.1 miles and I walked that one. And at the end of that day, a cold beer was really, really good. But they're relatively flat. They're paved roads and they go right into the camping areas. So they weren't like the ones in Montana. So I would say I did a lot of Google Maps satellite research to figure out which ones I wanted to portage and how I wanted to go about them. And there were really only a couple that surprised me from that research. So that was a good tool for me.
You got help on Peck?
Peck, I got help. They towed me, so they did end up portaging me. I had planned to walk that one. That one was only 2.1 miles, I think. So that I was going to plan to walk that one, but since the boat was broken, I took them up on the offer to go ahead and drop me off at the campsite.
Yeah.
So who else has got Jim Emanuel? Are you still on here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, what was your scenario on portages? Did you just wing it as you got to the portage, or did you?
Yeah, I winged it. Well, the first 3 portages were right in my backyard.
Right, literally, yeah.
And then when I got to Great Falls, I really didn't have any idea. So I called Jim Mead, and he said, well, I'm sorry, I'm kind of busy. I can't be there for like 15 minutes. I didn't have time to get my boat unloaded, and he showed up. And while I was doing that, another guy drove by on his bike, It says, hey, do you need a portage? I'll go get my truck. So that happened everywhere I went. There's no problem getting a portage.
Yeah.
At least what I found.
Good to know.
I left my wheels at home. I carried them for the first couple of days, and then I got to Hauser Dam, and I used them to go down below Hauser. Then I sent them home with my wife. Never
Wow.
needed them.
Did you never run into a situation where you needed them to get up offshore or anything?
No, I didn't. I just unloaded my boat and carried it out. But I had high water, so I was, and I was right up against the cliffs on those big lakes mostly. So I could find a little camping spot, and the water wasn't going to come up anymore because it was already maxed out. So that may be different in low water. You might want wheels.
Yeah.
So Norm, the second half of my question was, are there areas you should portage besides dams and the rapids below Great Falls? Are there other areas, rapids, for example, I'm thinking of Pine Islands or the others, that you should definitely portage around?
Help me out. What's this Pine Island thing? I have no
I
idea.
read it. I read somewhere, and I went through your website thoroughly, and I've also read the Complete Paddler, and somewhere I saw that, I think it was in the Complete Paddler, he talked about the Pine Islands Rapids, and
I wonder if that's what I'm thinking of, Cascade, up above Cascade.
Yeah, that was called Half Breed. And they
Half-Breed
changed the
Island.
name this last couple of years. That's
not
the
bad.
only rapid you have to kind of be careful of. It's long and makes a big S turn. But you go right down the middle. It's easy to read, and
okay.
it's right. You'll see go right under the bridge on the interstate, right by before Cascade.
Yeah, I guess my question was kind of a general one. Can you think of any other spots to portage around other than dams and the rapids below Great Falls? Or is it pretty much the rest of you can be on the river?
You said you were going to the Gulf, right? The only other one I would say is don't forget about Chain of Rocks.
Yeah, Chain of Rocks.
Yeah, I got a story about that. So when I did the Mississippi, I missed the turnoff to the Chain of Rocks, and I ended up going right through it. And it was the most terrifying
You did it?
experience of my life. I paddled right through it, and
Wow.
one of the commercial paddling boats paddled up to me and complimented me on getting through it. And he said, if you'd been here the day before yesterday, you wouldn't have come out of it alive, because the water was low 2 days before.
Oh my God.
That was a stupid error on my part. I just missed the turnoff, and I didn't know that area that well. And I saw those towers, the water towers, and I thought I was really enjoying those and filming them and taking photographs. And little did I know, another 50 feet down, and
So
I was in the Chain of Rocks.
Wow.
did you go over them like center, river center?
No, I wasn't River Center, if I remember
you-
correctly. I was more
Were
off.
you right at the towers?
I was right at the towers.
Okay.
And
It looks cleaner over there.
Yeah, it was 2 days earlier, and I wouldn't be talking to you guys here tonight.
Man.
That's crazy.
I just missed the turnoff. It was a stupid error.
Wow.
Well, if you did that, you don't have anything to worry about on this.
No.
Don't even bring any gear. You got it, man. Jeez,
Oh
you
my
need a
God.
medal for that one. I've never heard of anybody doing that. I know. I mean,
I didn't do it on purpose.
Janet's done the chain. I've seen a video of her, but that was also it sounds a little higher water. It wasn't a bunch of exposed rocks and stuff. There was that big cabin cruiser boat.
Yeah,
You're caught on it for two weeks.
right, the White Widow.
50-foot boat caught on it. So
Yeah.
It all depends on the water level, but we've swam through it before, and I stand-up paddleboarded through it before my first time on a stand-up paddleboard. So,
You're
I mean, it
kidding.
wasn't, no, but yeah, I've been through it several times, but there is a point where it gets so low that it becomes dangerous. But-
I might have to commission you to take me to do that. I might have to stand up paddleboard the Chain of Rocks. if you guide me.
Yeah. Life is an adventure. Sometimes you
Yeah.
gotta take risks.
That's
No, I was
awesome.
with Big Money Mike. That was my problem.
Well, I'm wondering what the group thinks about wind sails. You know, I didn't have anything like that on the Mississippi, and I don't plan to do it on the Missouri, but I've been reading about it, and people brag about our claim. It really helps. So I just wonder what the group thinks about wind paddles. I looked them up. You can buy them. They sound kind of difficult to mount. And
Wind paddles?
yeah,
Sails.
wind sails.
I can tell you my experience is I did not use it enough to make it worth bringing it
Okay.
on the boat. And there's a fine line between not having enough wind and having too much wind. So your chances of having that perfect window of opportunity to sail, which for sure it's awesome, but it's just, there was a point where I was like, I could be paddling faster than this, you know? So I ended up getting rid of it. That's my personal experience. But
There's a
Amazing.
model on, I looked it up, and there's a model called Wind Paddle, and it looked pretty cool, but in looking at the videos on how they work, they seem difficult to keep steady and difficult to mount and not worth the trouble.
no, it's not worth the trouble, I don't think. You
Amanda,
take an umbrella.
yeah, umbrella.
Yeah, umbrella.
Yeah.
Amanda,
Yeah,
you had a sail, but it was more like a sail on a sailboat.
Right. Yeah. And I would say it depends on your craft and so I got curious and I realized there wasn't a lot of American experience with sails on canoes. What I found is the British guys have done a lot of research on sailing with canoes. So I saw a bunch of blogs and did some more research on the dimensions for that. And that's how I decided to do it. I thought whatever wind I have, I'm going to use it. If you guys don't already know, I'm a Marine, so we use whatever tools we have at our disposal. If I get towed, if I need duct tape, we're resourceful. So a sail I thought would help, and I probably used it. I think I told Norm I calculated when it was all said and done, probably 25% of the time. So it was a measurable
Wow.
amount of time that I could use it, and I could have used it more. What failed was my lee board design. My lee boards broke. So all I could use was a tailwind. If I had done a better job designing and testing my lee boards, I could have used crosswinds too. And that would have amped up your percentage. But I don't know that I could speak to it depending on the craft. Mine, like I've said, is a big old canoe. I think your dynamics would change a little bit with a kayak for sure. Graham isn't on here, I don't think.
Not today, no.
He started with a sail, and I know he and I kind of were a week apart for a while there. And I know he said he felt unsafe with his sail, but he had one of the ones that went off the front of the kayak. And the wind we had at that time was pretty bad. So that probably wasn't helpful at all, but
It just probably depends. I never used a sail. I know Bob Bellingham, who did the river in 2012 to St. Louis. He used one of those round sail. What are they called?
off the front, just to
Yeah, with
sail.
the
That's all I
clear-
got.
That
Yep.
clear space. And he said he sailed a lot.
Did he?
And I guess he just lucked out with the wind direction. And
How do I schedule one of those?
yeah.
Is there a prevailing wind
Yes,
direction?
Always in your
What-
face.
what- from Peck on, does it mostly come from the south or the northeast or what?
I would say typically all the weather in the west comes from the southwest patterns, but I think localized winds can change. In other words, if you have a major storm in this area, it's pushing wind out in every direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
So there's,
if you're like here on the map and there's a supercell will actually blow in every direction. It'll blow this way out from the circle. So depending on where it is on the river, it could be blowing, every direction.
Right.
It's moving across. But just the typical sunny days in Montana or the Dakotas is typically at southwest, westerly. Yeah.
What I hadn't looked on Google Earth to see this, but I know around, I have pilot friends and they say you can tell the prevailing winds by looking at major airports and what the direction of the major runways are the prevailing winds. So
interesting.
I hadn't thought of that till just now.
Yeah.
To look at ones close to the.
That's going to be true. I was air crew for a couple of years in the Marine Corps, but that's going to be true, I think, anywhere you go. However, the only thing I was going to add to what Norm said is be aware of the variability of the terrain, because no matter what you think the wind is supposed to do that day, hour to hour, it's going to change. So the river horseshoes the whole way and everything's going to change. And that wind sometimes I couldn't explain it, but it just decides it's going to funnel this way, even though it's supposed to be going this way. And I thought it was personal most of the time, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, it blows 100 directions in a day. I don't remember. Yeah.
Norm, I have a question. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Crossing lakes and reservoirs, they always say, stay close to shore, stay close to shore. And but when you're dealing with some of these larger reservoirs and lakes where you have 1,800 miles or more of shoreline, you can't always do that. I just wonder what the strategy is of the group to deal with that. I suppose you just try to get out as early as you can when there's no wind and go as fast as you can to get from one side of the bay to the other. But are there any other tips for the lakes and reservoirs where you can't stay close to shore the whole time?
I'm a chicken when it comes to paddling solo in bad weather. I tell people I'm afraid of water, and I think they don't believe me. I really am. I'm a lousy swimmer. My strategy was, if there's no like ripples or real good wind, and if I needed to do a crossing, I would. But if it's already rolling, this high, if it's a foot where I'm at on shore, it's probably 3 feet out in the middle. And I needed to say to myself, do I want to go out there in that? Is it worth the risk? And usually I would opt to stay to shore rather than cross. So I'm not dealing with the wind. The only time I would cross is if I'm trying to cut a big bank or a big bend on a lake. Because some of those reservoirs, if you literally cut the bend off, you might save an hour of paddling if the weather's good. But if it's bad, you could be fighting all day. One of my strategies was, if I'm going slower than I can paddle, in other words, if I felt like I was going to paddle all day in this headwind and only get 12 miles in 12 hours, I would rather sit on shore and go hiking and read a book and take a nap, and then paddle 35 miles the next day when it's dead calm and make up twice as far as I would at the wind. That was my strategy. I always played it safe. I was a chicken, I didn't want to go out there in the weather. That was my strategy. And I'm sure everybody else is different. Janet, what was your?
Well, Fort Peck, has a lot of those arms that go way back. And so it's necessary for you to cross right along the lake. And so I would wait until, first thing in the morning. I can hear my feedback. Is that from me? But I carried spiz. I need to turn my volume down. I carried spiz with me, It's an energy drink. And I would drink a quart of that and go as fast as I could. You don't want to get caught in the middle of the lake. And the squalls can come up at any time. So be careful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amanda, how about some of your big crossings? What did you do?
Yeah, I would echo the be careful. And I would just say follow your gut. Compared to those two stories, I probably am at the other end of the spectrum. I took more risks. But I'm more comfortable with water too. And I had my PFD, and I know the dog could swim. And I knew the canoe wouldn't sink is a big factor. I had already tested that with Fort Peck. But even before that, I think just you can tell, right? And you guys who have done it, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you look out there, you can tell whether you're comfortable or not. And it doesn't take long to determine it. And I think it just depends on the person and the craft.
Okay.
Jim, Emmanuel, you there?
Yeah,
How about you? Do you have some big crossings?
yeah. Especially on Peck, I do just like Janet. I kind of hover around there and eat some food, drink a quart of water, and then go for it as fast as I could. And then, if you look at all those crossings, you look across, I'd find a point which I thought was like a happy median where I don't have to go too far in. I wasn't too far out, and I picked that point. I keep telling myself, just go to that point instead of getting halfway across and there's no wind. Well, maybe I'll cheat. I'll go a couple miles toward the end. And I just keep telling myself, just go to that point, go to one point to the next. And that was my philosophy.
I was
You get halfway
lucky.
across and you're tempted to save a few strokes by going farther out on the next point.
That's
Try to be self-committed and try not to do that as well. Well, that was my philosophy. Also, on Peck, depends on the wind. And if the wind is blowing out to sea, I want to cross. If it was blown in, if something happened, I get blown into that little bay, I'd be more tempted to cross. But when it's blowing out across Peck, I did not want to be out in the middle of that river or that lake with a capsized boat, especially the farther you get down toward the dam. It's big down there. So
And
that's
then
what I did. It worked. I made it.
And the not fun fact for me was I had 10 days straight of headwind. So I couldn't just sit there on Fort Peck. I didn't have enough supplies to do that. So I had to fight through some of that
Yeah.
in my perception, I guess.
I'm chuckling a little bit at you folks because we're old folks, Jim and I are, and it does change your perspective of where you go and where you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true.
I was lucky on Peck. My first night on Peck, just after I rounded the UL bend, I was on shore. I made camp, and the first squall that I had ever come in contact with came across the arm. It was just an arm. It wasn't even the lake. And I had never seen that happen before. And you can hear the noise first. It sounds like a jet airplane. As it gets closer, it sounds like a train that's going right by you. And you can see the cloud, but you can't really see the wind necessarily until it starts to get closer and closer. And then all of a sudden you're just engulfed in this squall that came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere. And fortunately for me, I watched the whole thing happen. So I had that knowledge in my mind that I carried with me on all of my river trips. So you always have to be aware that a squall can come down at any time. So that's why I don't cross big lakes across the middle. I know a lot of experienced paddlers do not cross big lakes in the middle unless you know that a high pressure is set in and it's absolutely calm. You can tell, you can feel it, and you know that there's nothing's going to change that for at least a half a day or hours or whatever. So I was lucky I experienced it, so I was aware and very cautious. My last day on Fort Peck, though, was one of those high pressures came down after waiting out 2 days of wind. And man, I would be paddling. I'm like, I own this lake. I own it. It was so glassy. I could go anywhere. I felt like I could go out in the middle. I could come back, whatever. So there's,
I think if
you'll
I'd
know.
stuck it out, I would have got one of those finally.
Yeah,
I never saw anything that was glass.
it was glassy. I've got pictures to prove it.
Aw.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I tell people too, man, if you feel like you're psychologically being beat up and you're not getting anywhere, when it is calm, paddle until it's not calm. In other words, if you got to paddle till the sun sets, which is 10:30 at night or whatever, paddle all day. Take advantage of that, because man, the next day you might not even move an inch. Yeah.
Another great rule of thumb that Norm taught me early on my trip was, do you know what I'm going to tell him, Norm?
No.
If you
Bring a
see
lighter.
when the sun, don't ever go anywhere without matches or a lighter. That's the first thing. But on another note, when the sun sets on the horizon, you've got an hour
Yep.
of enough light where
Yep.
you can set up camp.
Yep.
So a lot of times I would be like taking it all the way down, but it was so true. That's a good rule of thumb.
So
You can
yeah,
paddle.
my 2004 trip, I never used the headlamp once. And my goal was I would paddle until the sun hit the horizon and I would camp right there. I don't care. If it was real bad, I may go 100 feet up at camp. And that would literally be 9:30, quarter to 10 at night. And I could set up tent, change clothes, cook dinner, eat, clean up, pack, and be in the tent with that hour of twilight and never need a headlamp in that hour. So I was going till 10 at night every night, unless I got wind blown off. But
Don't let them push you down the river.
yeah, don't let them.
I did not do that.
You sleep in if you want to sleep in. You drink 2 cups of coffee if you want to drink 2 cups of coffee.
I was harassing you, Janet. You knew that.
I have to transport my canoe from California to Three Forks. Anybody have any good ideas as to good transport companies that do that?
God. Oh yeah, John. Oh, an inside joke, John McFarland, but I won't dare. That's another story. We can't go there.
Whereabouts in California? Where in California?
I live in Southern California, Costa Mesa.
Um,
I'll find a company easily enough. Someone new.
My daughter and son-in-law are going out there with a trailer the middle of June. Is that helping any?
Yeah, that might, because I plan to leave after my 60-year anniversary on June 17th. I'll be leaving in the 3rd week of June.
They're going to be hauling a pickup, so I need to check with them. But
Thank you.
But okay, just a minute. Let me get a pencil.
Okay.
I have to go. I have to teach
thanks.
7th graders in the morning. I need lots of sleep and rest.
Thanks for all your input.
Oh,
Thank you.
my
Thank you.
pleasure. Great questions. Wonderful meeting you all, kind of meeting you. But I've got your names, so I know who, I've got faces with names. That's awesome.
Before
And
we
you,
sign off-
Amanda. We've got
Yes, I
stories.
can't wait to
here.
meet you in person.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Norm, I'm
before
sorry
you
I
go,
haven't-
oh, sorry,
ahead.
before you go, I just wanted to quickly introduce
Hey,
myself.
Thorne, very quick,
Hey,
do it.
I'm Torrin Lokes. I'm going to be attempting to paddle across the country this year, starting in about 8 days. I'm from the Yukon Territory, Canada. I did the Mississippi. I through paddled the Mississippi in 2014. Yeah, I'm really excited. I was hoping to do this trip a few years ago, but delayed with I got delayed on 2019 and then COVID hit. So now I'm ready to go and I got all my gear ready and my yeah, really excited. So it's great to meet you all virtually.
So,
That's awesome. Good
so
to
you're
meet you.
start-
Good luck.
you're starting at Astoria on the Columbia in like a week?
Yeah. So the plan is I'm in Vancouver right now, and my girlfriend's gonna drive me down to Astoria. We're gonna do a little road trip along the way, and then I'll start paddling out of Astoria on the 17th of May.
Well, good luck.
Good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Appreciate it.
Jim and I will look forward to seeing any of you who are going to be portaging through Great Falls. So make sure you have our phone number. Now, the gentleman who's in California, what is your name?
Bill Burke, B-U-R-K-E,
B-U-R-K, and a phone number,
I'm gonna
Bill.
drop.
714.
I'm gonna drop. I gotta go.
Bye, Amanda. Thanks.
Thank you
Amanda,
guys. Nice
bye.
to meet all of you.
Amanda, just a second. I
Nice to
wanted
meet you.
to, before we sign off, I wanted to thank Amanda and our other vets on this call for your service. God bless you. You're an
Thank you,
inspiration.
sir.
So my number is 714-742-6626. And I appreciate your.
Okay, I have 714-742-6626.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and Bill, I'll probably be calling you within the week because I'll talk to them and see what their schedule is.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay?
Before we start losing here, the people, Bill, you mentioned you want everybody's number. So if you guys could text me that are doing the river this year with your cell phone number, I'll get it to everybody else. If you just want to send it to me, I'll send it out in one big list.
That'd be great, Norm.
Solve that. And I see Larry, you just joined too. Larry, thanks for coming in late. Sorry for all the hassle getting on. Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, some things got covered already and, I always learn something. And you're pretty easy to get a hold of. And I am going down with another guy. He's going to be in a kayak. I'll be in my canoe. And so that kind of lightens things up a little bit. So
Yeah.
we're about ready to get started. We'll be up there we'll be up to the 30th and leave on the 1st of June.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's like 3 of you leaving within a week, I think.
Okay, and who's the other guy? Keith Forsyth is with me.
I'm going on the 2nd. That's the plan right now. So I might run into you.
Steve.
Okay, yeah, you're Snell, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve Snell. Okay.
And then we lost what's his name? Going to the Gulf.
Oh, Hillman?
Yeah, Dave Hillman. He's that first week too. He
Yeah,
just
he's at the 4th, I think.
yeah.
And what kind of boat do you have, Steve?
I'm in a Winona Prism canoe.
Okay, yeah, I used to have one of those. Great.
Make
Yep.
sure you guys have Jimmy Manuel's phone number. He can supply you with some fresh walleye on Canyon Ferry.
Who is that?
Jimmy, you there?
I live not far from Canyon Ferry, so if need any help, give me a call.
Okay, great.
Do any of you guys have experience paddling the Missouri a little bit later, like in end of July, August, September, that time frame. I'm just kind of curious what the river might look like, because I'm going to be taking quite some time paddling up the Columbia and doing that portage. So I'm expecting to probably start off in Three Forks around, the third week of July.
I guide in the Missouri Breaks in the summer, July, August, and September. The water's low, but it's still, I mean, it's just slower. You lose half the speed. So no, so
Okay.
in other words, when you hear of people doing 60-mile days in May, you're gonna do 30-mile days kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was used
And,
to.
and you're also gonna lose daylight hours too, is the solstice switches too, you know, as you get into August, September, October. And you said you were in a Mad River Explorer?
Yeah, Mad River Revelation. Yeah.
Trying to picture
The
the
17 footer.
Okay,
Yeah, it's like Royal X Mad River Revelation 17-foot
yeah.
thing. Yeah. It's kind of what I grew up paddling back at home, so it's what I'm comfortable with. And I just found it on Facebook Marketplace just last week. I was looking for the right boat, still kind of cruising, but that looked like a decent option
How
for
are you
me.
gonna get to Three Forks?
My plan, so what I was hoping to do, the Portage, I've been talking a lot to Martin Trahan and Neil Moore. I've been talking a lot to them about, because I know they've both done it. And Martin was telling me that the Portage, like on the road with the canoe, is like pretty dangerous. And he, I guess it took him about 3 weeks walking from Lewiston to Helena.
Yeah, especially along the where his route was. There's no shoulder there.
Yeah. So I wanted to, I really would be keen to paddle the Big Hole in the Jefferson River to Three Forks. And so I had a route planned where I would go from Lewiston up to Elk City, Idaho, and then go across the Magruder Corridor Trail. It's about 100, I think it's about 135 miles or something like that, until it links back to the highway, and then go down to Wisdom, and then jump into the Big Hole there. But I think what I might do, honestly, is just to see if I try to coordinate with somebody, friends or whoever, who would be interested in bringing my boat from Lewiston to Wisdom or nearby there, and then jumping on a bicycle. So I'm actually going to bring my panniers with me up the Columbia, and then see if I can get a bicycle in Lewiston, and ride my bike over the Magruder Corridor Trail or the Nez Perce Trail, just because I feel like it would save me, a lot of time. I'd be able to do that in a week instead of maybe 3.5 weeks a month walking. And, even with all that extra time included, I'm expecting, if I leave May 17th out of Astoria, I'm looking to reach Pensacola, Florida, probably by like just before Christmas. So, yeah.
There's a couple, I'll get you offline. There's a couple people in Lewistown, Idaho that may be able to help, that actually help Neil and Martin. They may be able to.
That'd be awesome.
They may be able to drive your boat over.
Yeah,
Over to
awesome.
over to the Wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any experience paddling on the Wisdom River?
No, I've never been on it. Jim, have you been on it?
Yeah, that's the Big Hole. It starts at right. It starts to get floatable at about Wisdom. Maybe not late in the year, I don't know, but you don't have to go too much farther down to get floatable water.
Yeah. Did you like it? Is it nice up there?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fishermen up there. You won't be alone, so it's a beautiful river.
Okay, well, something to look forward to. It'll be a little while till I get there.
The only place you're gonna find maybe a problem is down toward the Jefferson. We run into that. There's goes through some ranch land where it kind of braids out. I haven't floated that, but I was looking at floating it, and that could be difficult with all those braids, but you should be able to figure that out. I've only seen it at high water, and I didn't go because it's all those braids ended in seas and stuff. But at lower water, they're not going to have much water this year, so that shouldn't be any issue.
Well, guys, I'm gonna leave you. Happy paddling.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Norm.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great trip.
Any other last questions?
I have a question.
Go for it, Steve.
Just related to like sending some packages along the way.
Yeah.
If anybody on the call has done that before,
Oh, yeah.
if you're planning for it, like right now, like I'm trying to figure out like where I can resupply and like where I can't, and I'm sending myself food, but also, you know, other things like watercolor paper for the paintings I want to make along the way.
Mhm.
And right now I'm thinking like Fort Benton would probably be like the first logical drop.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Or would you recommend before or after Fort Benton, like in
Well,
terms of like carrying enough like food and
you can get down there. It sounds like you're going to be going a little slower because you're going to paint, but
Yeah.
you can get down there in 10 days.
to Fort Benton in 10 days?
Yeah, you could get there sooner, but I mean,
Okay.
I think with your speed, you're looking at 10 days.
Okay.
And
'Cause
then,
I'm looking right now, either Fort Benton, like the post office there,
Yep.
or like doing Peck Marina as my first drop. But
maybe doing Peck the next drop or Tobacco Gardens.
that's
Back
like,
away.
yeah, that's on my list too.
Did you get that list we sent with all the people that, okay.
Hmm.
So Peggy, who owns Tobacco Gardens, is really helpful. A lot of people send her packages
Okay.
at Tobacco Gardens, and she also puts people up in a cabin there for a couple nights, no charge. So I definitely would make that a stop.
I'm planning
And
on
Fort Peck or Fort Bend is a good spot. You could also send it. The post office is a block from the river. You can send a general delivery, or you could send it to Nicole Figuri, who's in the group. She lives there and she runs one of the outfitter companies,
Okay.
and I can get you her address. And people sent packages to her as well. Yeah, I would probably like shoot for Fort Benton and then either Peck or Lake Sakakawea.
Okay.
And then you could do another one down like in Yankton with all the people from the South Dakota Canoe and Kayak Club. Bob Foley, David Mays, Jared Beast, all those could take packages, I would think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question I was just like trying to like figure out is I mean, like how much cash would you bring on you when you're on the river? Like going to some of these campgrounds, I figure like it's probably a good idea to have some cash on you to like pay the fee if I want to be able to take a shower. I just don't even use cash anymore. Like really, I'm trying to figure out like what's the logical amount to bring with you. I don't want to like be bringing a lot of money, but what would you recommend?
Jim, Manuel, what did you do?
I don't think I took much cash because I didn't camp at any campgrounds that maybe two that would charge.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes when you get farther down, you might want to stop at a marina and get a burger but that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
And
taking.
You can
taking
use a
much
card
cash.
there. Most of those marinas will accept cards, so.
Cool.
And there's ATM machines that you can refresh cash
Yeah.
in the cities.
Yeah, I think you're probably okay with $20 in your pocket and an ATM card. I don't remember having cash in 2004. I don't remember it being an issue, although a couple campgrounds I remember going in, they wanted you to drop a $10 in an envelope thing, and there was nobody there, and I didn't have any cash and I didn't have any checks, so I just had to leave early in the morning before people showed up.
All right.
But yeah,
Got it.
I'm the loser. I owe a few city parks probably some money, I think. Anyway. Another question, anyone? No. Everybody's all tired.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I want to post this, so if anyone missed it, I'll have it maybe up on YouTube and a link to it in a day. It went almost 2 hours, which is pretty good. cool. There's a lot of really good information, I thought. And like I mentioned earlier, those that are going out soon on the river, send me your email or phone number, and I'll send it all one, and that way all you guys can have everybody's text. And kind of
I'm gonna, oh, sorry to interrupt you.
No,
Yeah, I
you're
was just
right.
gonna say, I'm gonna get a US number when I get down there.
Okay.
I guess I was hearing from Neil that Verizon is a kind of a
Yeah,
relatively
that's
good
kind of
service.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm sure I'll have like a lot of questions for you guys once I get over there. I just have so much on my mind trying to get up to Columbia and the
Yeah.
Snake River on the way. So
Take
Yeah.
it to the or the tide, the incoming tide.
yeah, well, I can. It's like, yeah, but I'm really excited, and I hope you guys have a blast on your different adventures. And if I see you guys along the way, some of you at least, I'm sure a lot of the paddlers are going to be long gone by the time I get there. But definitely anyone is along the river, I'm really excited to meet you guys in person and stay in touch.
Cool. Yeah.
Good
Now,
luck.
Thorin, do you got a website of your trip or a blog?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on. You can find my stuff at Facebook, Instagram. I'll be posting on my music website too, just www.tornlokes.com. But yeah, I've got some ideas in the mix. I'd like to maybe try to do this podcast as well. I'm interested in asking people questions about what they love about where they live. What they find meaningful in life, and just have some really cool discussions while I go along on the river, and so you'll be able to find all that through my socials.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Well, we're gonna sign off. Thanks everyone for coming, and it's
See ya.
good talking and chatting with everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Norm. Norm.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yep. Thanks.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.